Episode 12 The Dying Light. Clara had worked in hospice care for almost 12 years, long enough to witness every shade of human grief, from the wrenching sobs of families to the quiet, resigned peace of those ready for their final sleep. But she'd never met a patient quite like Harlan Mercer. He was 94 when he was admitted, a thin man with silver hair that refused to lie flat, and eyes that held the faded blue of old denim. He greeted every nurse with a warm, "Good morning, sweetheart," and insisted on standing when the chaplain came, even though his legs trembled beneath him. Harlan was kind and gentle and a little strange. He never complained about his pain, never raised his voice, but every so often Clara would catch him staring at someone, not in a rude way, more like sadness, a soft, solemn sadness. And every time Clara caught that look, Harlan quickly forced a smile, as if he knew how odd it must have seemed. She chalked it up to his old age, his fragility, his nearing death. But then came the evening with Mrs. Bear. Mrs. Bear was a tiny woman with hair like spun sugar and hands that trembled every time she spoke. She was dying of heart failure, and every breath sounded like it hurt. Still, she smiled whenever Clara entered the room, and Clara always took an extra minute to chat with her before continuing her rounds. That night, as Clara stood at the foot of Mrs. Bear's bed, adjusting her chart, she heard the soft squeak of a hallway wheelchair. Harlan, bundled in a knitted blanket, was being pushed down the corridor for his usual evening round. He turned toward Mrs. Bear's room as they passed, and stopped. His face softened, his lips parted, his eyes filled with something like sorrow. Clara had no way to describe it, except he was looking at something, and there was grief in his eyes. Something about Miss Bear. "Mr. Mercer?" Clara asked gently. "You okay?" He blinked, startled, and the look vanished instantly. "Yes, sweetheart, just admiring your diligence." But his voice sounded wrong, a touch heavy. Miss Bear died in her sleep 2 hours later. Clara remembered that look on Harlan's face all night, like it had been burned behind her eyelids. But she pushed it away. Coincidence, she told herself. Just bad timing. People died here. That was the whole job. 3 days later, it happened again. Clara was restocking the linen closet when she heard a soft shuffling behind her. Harlan had wandered from his room again. Nothing unusual. He liked to explore the halls at a snail's pace, stopping to look at old photographs or to ask the nurses about their kids. "Evening, sweetheart," he said, gripping his walker with spotted hands. "Evening, Mr. Mercer," Clara said warmly. "Need any help back to your room?" But he wasn't looking at her. His eyes had drifted past her shoulder to Mr. Alvarez, who slept restlessly in room 217. And again, Clara saw the change. His features drooped with quiet sorrow. His heart bobbed as if he was trying not to cry. Clara stepped aside, instinctively looking at the exact spot Harlan was staring. Nothing. But Mr. Harlan whispered under his breath, barely audible, "Poor soul." "Mr. Mercer?" Clara asked. He startled again. "Oh, just thinking to myself. Old man rambling, you know." But the next morning, Mr. Alvarez's heart stopped at dawn. Clara dropped a tray of syringes when she had heard the news. She refused, flat out refused, to believe what her mind was trying to piece together. Human beings did not predict death. They didn't see anything like that. They had no idea when it would come. even though they all knew it was coming. But she hadn't imagined the look on Harlan's face. She knew she hadn't. After Mr. Alvarez passed, Clara watched Harlan more carefully. He still smiled, still told corny jokes, still asked her if she had eaten yet every shift, as a polite grandfather fussing over his granddaughter. But sometimes, just sometimes, she caught him watching her. Not the sorrowful look, just something measured, considered, as if he were preparing himself for something he didn't want to say. It made Clara's stomach tighten every time. She tried to ask him once, during an afternoon medication check, "Mr. Mercer, when Miss Bear passed and Mr. Alvarez, you looked at them strangely beforehand. Are you feeling okay?" Harlan smiled fondly. "Clara, I'm just an old man missing those around me." He touched her wrist gently. "You're a good woman. Don't fret over me." Harlan declined quickly after that. Not physically. His vitals stayed stable enough, but something inside him darkened. He spoke less, slept more, ate only when Clara insisted. Worst of all, he avoided looking at her. Entire conversations were held with his eyes fixed on the blanket or on the wall. Clara tried not to think about it, but she failed. The revelation came quietly. It was almost the end of Clara's shift when she found Harlan awake, staring at the ceiling. He looked so fragile, sitting there in bed. "Mr. Mercer, can't sleep?" He exhaled, and with a shaky voice, asked, "Clara, could you sit a moment?" "Of course." When she took his hand, she felt him trembling. He didn't look at her. "For most of my life," he said softly, "I thought I was cursed with an overactive imagination." "I see things," he whispered. "Always have. A glow, like a small sunrise just behind the person. But not a real one, just a kind of light that only I can see." Clara froze. "And every time I see it," his voice cracked, "they die. Hours later, sometimes minutes." Clara swallowed hard. "Mr. Mercer, I didn't understand it at first," he continued. "Saw it as a boy, saw it in the war. Over friends, over strangers. But I didn't know, Clara. Not really. Not until I ended up here in hospice. When everyone who comes through here, well..." He didn't have to finish the sentence. He finally turned his head toward her, and Clara felt her heart seize, because in his eyes, those pale, sorrowful eyes, she saw it. Harlan's eyes were filled with that same sadness. "Harlan," she whispered, voice trembling, "is there something you aren't telling me? Did you see it again?" His jaw quivered. Tears welled. "I didn't want to tell you," he whispered. "I prayed it was a mistake. I hoped I was wrong." His breath hitched. "But I can't lie to you." Her throat tightened. Finally, the words came. "Clara, you're next." It felt like the room turned sideways. Clara's vision blurred, her stomach lurched. She stood too fast, nearly knocking the chair over. No," she whispered. "No, that... Harlan, you've been confused lately. It's just stress, grief. You've seen so much." He didn't argue, didn't insist, didn't repeat. He just looked at her with heartbreak in his eyes. And that was somehow worse. Clara left the hospice in a fog hours later, long after her shift had ended. She told herself that she was fine. She didn't believe him. She couldn't believe him. But her hands shook as she walked down the dimly lit sidewalk toward her apartment. It was nearly midnight. The street lights cast soft halos across the pavement, and the light October breeze tugged at her jacket. Her breath fogged faintly in the air. She kept replaying Harlan's face, his trembling voice. "You're next." No, ridiculous, impossible. This was just an old grief-induced delirium, nothing more. But the memory of his expression, full of sorrow and uncertainty, burrowed deep under her ribs. She turned the corner toward her block. Her shoe caught on something, an uneven slab of concrete jutting up about a quarter-inch higher than the rest. She stumbled forward, arms flailing, her purse sliding off her shoulder. A sudden blare of a horn split the air. Headlights flared white in her vision. Her heart jumped into her throat. A rush of air, tires screeching, a shout somewhere, and then darkness. Back in his room, Harlan Mercer wept. This has been another story you didn't ask for. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe with new episodes every Wednesday.